Joining me today is Emery Emery, the producer, director, author, and host of the podcast Skeptically Yours and the Ardent Atheist. Emery, you're really good at kind of parsing out some of the fallacies that are kind of implicit in some of the arguments we hear from the anti-marriage equality crowd. So I want you to take me through this step by step. And where I want to start is one of my favorite things, which are the slippery slope arguments that we hear from people who oppose marriage equality. So take me through the logic as you see it, or the lack of logic of those arguments.
Well, I don't like the word slippery slope. I like to just call it what it is, and that's just utter nonsense. It's not accurate. It's not true. Pardon me?
No, yeah, that's fair. Fine. We don't even have to, we can call it nonsense.
Yeah, I think it is nonsense. I mean, on my show, The Ardent Atheist, we talk about gay rights a lot. It comes up a lot because really who's behind this oppression are the religious folks. That's where the problem comes from. The argument that you hear that just sounds so absurd to me, and I can't believe that anybody in this day and age would even make such an utterly ignorant argument, is what's next? You know what I mean? I actually had a friend who's a believer in my studio, and he said, "What's next, animals?" And when people say that to me, David, I'm just utterly baffled. My immediate response is always the same, and that is, well, if with that logic, then we need to go back, and we need to not, marriage should be abolished, because by that logic, if you make marriage legal, what's next? Marrying bags? I mean, that's the logic. And it doesn't hold any water. You have to do the math on these
and
things.
even more specifically than that, right? The only reason that somebody would even suggest two men getting married is because we have what is considered heterosexual marriage. So really opening that door is really the start of that slippery slope, isn't it? But I don't think anybody's willing to go back and get rid of that.
Well, obviously, I don't think marriage should be abolished. I think freedom should be something that we all hold to be very important. And the freedom to get married with whatever religious ceremony and whatever rules you want to apply to it should absolutely be in place. Again, freedom is the foundation on which we supposedly in the United States put everything. So why are so many so quick to dismiss this fundamental freedom? I don't understand it.
Well, what's
It
interesting
doesn't make
about the
any
freedom
sense.
thing, and I know you say that the argument to make is the freedom argument, right? It's a question of civil rights and freedom. And what's fascinating about this is that we talked recently about how Bill O'Reilly, I don't think he was, I think his motives there were ulterior motives. But that being said, Bill O'Reilly has said, listen, the pro-equality crowd has made this an issue of freedom and civil rights. And when you do that, it's very hard to argue against that. Now, I don't know if Bill O'Reilly believes that it truly is an issue of freedom or not, but that's okay, because he's recognizing that when you couch it in that way, there really is no opposition to marriage equality, is there?
Well, I never thought I would say this, but Bill O'Reilly could not be more right. And that's my argument. My argument is nobody anybody who wants to give homosexuals equal rights should never make an argument other than the freedom argument. And here's why. When you make the argument about, let's say, for example, choice, homosexuality is a choice. Nobody that I am friends with would disagree with that. It's a true fact. That's a fact. It is something that people can choose to do. It's also genetic, we think, and I think that that's accurate. Nobody I know disagrees with that idea, or that I'm friends with. My sphere of friends understands the genetics involved, understands also the choice of sexuality. Both of those things, in my opinion, are true.
But so hold on, let's stop right there, because I think that'll be confusing to some of my audience. When you say that there's a choice involved, it's the choice to engage in a gay or straight relationship or not to, but you're not saying that there's a choice as to who you're attracted to.
No, I'm not.
Okay, just wanted to be clear, yeah.
I'm saying both of them are true. This is something you don't hear very often, David. Both are true. There are people whose sexuality, I'm one of them, for the record. There are people whose sexuality, whose sexual encounters, whose sexual expression is based on choices. There's no question about that. I think that I was wired, for the most part, to live a heterosexual life. My philosophical belief system allows me to understand that I don't have to. I have the choice. And I'll look anybody in the eye and tell them, you don't get to take away my freedom of choice. I can choose to do what I want with whomever I want. That's a fact. You can't argue it. I know homosexuals who've chosen to live heterosexual lives. As horrific as that is, I know of people who've done that. So the choice argument is accurate. It is the choice. The other argument that we can actually, gene expression plays a role in this, is you can't argue against that. That too is true. Here's the problem. These are not points on which any of this should be discussed ever. Because what it comes down to is, are we not free? Are we not free, David? We are living in the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Well, and to put it simply,
why? Why would anybody argue any other perspective than the freedom?
And one of the best counter arguments I've heard to, you know what, whether you call it a lifestyle choice or not, since when do we discriminate against lifestyle choices, right? I mean, are we saying, hey, it's fine to discriminate against people? We could also say, let's not hire people who have who dye their hair, right? I mean, we could take that argument, and even though it's completely scientifically unfounded in the way that the right tries to couch it, it's still not a basis for discrimination if you take the freedom argument, which is what you're suggesting.
Well, as long as you make it about the freedom argument, you force those who argue against it to be obviously and overtly oppressive.
We've been speaking with Emery Emery, producer, director, author, host of the podcast Skeptically Yours and Ardent Atheist. Emery, pleasure to have you on today. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me, David.